So the purpose of today's session, I'm really, really excited to bring you today's guest because she's amazing. If you don't know her, which you might already, you should know her. And NeCole and her schools, Paul Mitchell schools, Columbus and Cleveland, were one of our earliest adopters. And if you guys are following, we're also doing what's called a 9-grid contest right now. And that's a cash prize contest where students really engage with one of our visual tools. So if you guys are new to Qnity, you might not necessarily know what that is, but if you do know what the 9-grid tool is, which is a foundational thing of our program, NeCole, yes, there we go. It's a tool we use through all the lessons. NeCole's schools are like all over it, and they are trying to win.
Not over it.
They're going nuts, and they're so good. So if you guys want, you can hashtag 9-grid contest, and you'll see many of NeCole's schools there. So really, really excited to be with you. And Alcott, maybe at the end, we do a little bit of financial literacy stats, if anyone's curious, but really focus the first part on NeCole. So
sure.
NeCole, you've got 2 schools. You also have been involved. You also have and had salons. You were involved in a very large trade association, really passionate about elevating the industry. But tell me a little bit about your schools before we get started into the finance component.
Well, our schools are in Cleveland, Ohio, and Columbus, Ohio. And we probably graduate about 160, 170 per school each year. And what I love about our schools, they're extremely diverse. So they all walks of life, all different backgrounds. And I love that because you get so many different stories and so many different, just interesting, people just coming from all different walks of life that just have such a different views on life. And so you learn so much about so many different people. So it just gives me so much encouragement and hope about the future of our industry. And so that I think that's what I really love about it. But things are going hard. We've been in business 20 years.
Yes. And you are in business collectively or together with your husband, Orlando. Yeah. So business and life partners. Orlando is also amazing. I always try to get Orlando more involved in the stuff, but he kind of likes to be behind the scenes guy, even though he's amazing. He's got like such a beauty. I mean, he's just amazing. And he's so, he's wonderful too. We got to get him on Qnity Camp one of these days.
Absolutely.
Yes. And so you guys also too, which I think is interesting, is NeCole and Orlando as business partners really have the dyad relationship, which is something we talk about, which is kind of the balance of the head and the heart, the profit and people, the business and creative, which of course at Qnity, we're always trying to unite the two. And, one of the things that we talk about on the business side is to really have that dyad in partnership because it really allows you to excel. And NeCole's really, the visionary, the people, the culture, the get on stage, present, get on camera. So it's really beautiful. And Orlando's very financially savvy. So it's a great partnership.
NeCole, real quick for you. You're a legend in our parts. So just to let you know, because you are like an early adopter of this content. So when we talk about being light years ahead of the industry, and all week we've kind of had this general theme of really talking about really shaking up that whole status quo and the whole notion that a beauty career is not a first choice career and how do we reshape the way that people view an education in beauty. Like you're unique in that you kind of stepped into this without it having its sea legs, right? So you were kind of you almost have helped to make the case of how important a program like this is. What was the motivation to jump into it, as an education provider in the beauty space? Like, what was your motivation?
Well, for me, I understand firsthand how important financial literacy is because I didn't have it growing up. And when you don't have something, particularly like financial literacy early in your life or in your career, you make some poor choices. And I made some poor choices early on. And I mean, one of the things that I do love about Orlando that Erin spoke about, he had financial literacy growing up. So, I mean, we're so completely opposite, but, you know, it allowed me to be able, I know firsthand as a student, how important it is to be able to have that financial literacy so that they can avoid some of the mistakes that I made growing up.
Yeah,
So,
I
go
think
ahead.
that's a perfect segue, NeCole, into your story because for those of you who don't know, NeCole's actually in the program. She has a money story. I interview her on my podcast where you can kind of go deeper into NeCole's. But I think, you know, sometimes I think that's why so many educators and owners are so passionate about bringing this program to students because we know what it's like not to have it. So we're like, oh my God, we don't want anyone to repeat that mistake. And so sometimes, you know, what I always say with this program and with schools is we have three stakeholders, right? We've got the owners, you know, you guys gotta, you know, want something and bring it to life and champion it if you're making change in your organization. Of course, you've got your educators, and then you've got the user, which is students. And it's kind of like making sure that we really recognize all of those different groups. And so sometimes the students are like the last ones to believe that they need it. You know what I mean? So one of the things we really try to do, again, through stories like your own, is let them see the why and let them see other people's mistakes. So they're like, okay, now I get why this matters. So let's talk about your story. You went to beauty school, you had your own challenges and
I
choices around money.
did.
So tell us a little about your story.
Sure. You know, I, like a lot of people, went to college first and did realize that that was not the move for me. And, you know, decided in my sophomore year that I wanted to go into the beauty industry. I knew early on, but my parents they were not having it.
Was not a first choice for them, right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. So, you know, I went in and I can just remember like I get one shot at this. So I left right out of like a lecture hall and went and signed up for beauty school. And when I signed up for beauty school, you know, I had to take out a student loan, I had to do all of those things. But fast forward, once I got through beauty school, um, I had a dream job like everybody else. Like, you know, there's that one salon that you're like, that's where all the cool kids go. That's where I want to go. That's where I want to start my career. And shout out to Chuck Penzone. And that was where I wanted to go. And I got the interview once I graduated. I got the interview and I got hired. But I had a rude awakening very quickly that they weren't paying enough. And I mean, as an assistant, like, okay, I'm dating myself now, but um, what was it? Oh shoot, I can't even think of the word, but it was, I made $3.35 an hour.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, that was what's the word? Um, oh shoot, but anyway,
It's an apprentice, right?
it is
Yeah.
apprentice, but what's the minimum that you can
Minimum
make?
minimum
wage.
wage.
Minimum
Yeah.
wage.
Yeah.
Thank you. Nobody could think of that first.
Yeah.
Minimum wage. So, like I said, I'm dating myself. It was $3.35 an hour. But let me just back up just a little bit because I was like 19 years old and thinking I was pretty cool and wanted to move out because my parents were really strict. And, you know, I wanted to go and hang out with my boyfriend at Kent State, Orlando, at
Yeah.
Kent State, Ohio, and hang out there. And, you know, they were just not having that. So I was like, you know what? I'm moving out. I'm going to move out. I'm going to do my thing. And I did. But in the process, I made a bunch of bills, unnecessary bills. And when it came time to get that dream job, I had not set myself up in a position to be able to accept it. And I was that kid, I was willing to work two jobs and do what I needed to do to make ends meet. But because of the schedule and how they worked it, you didn't have a set schedule. It changed every week, which made it virtually impossible to have a second job. So that was a huge, huge disappointment for me because I'd worked so hard and really had, you know, my goals and, you know, everything in line and everything lined up. And I couldn't accept the job because of the position that I put myself in and decisions that I made. So that was, I think, the first huge aha. And there's a few more details, but you guys, like, Erin said, go onto the podcast and I go in more detail. But it really, that was the big, huge aha for me, that you got to make smarter decisions. And, because what your decisions do, they affect what you can do in the future. So that was like I said, that was the biggest aha for me in terms of not having the financial literacy that I needed to be able to, move forward in my career. And I think that was the first wake up call that your financial decisions could affect your career in the long run.
Yeah. You talk about choosing your choices, right? And just recognizing, hey, you can, a lot of times people take a lower paying job because it's at a place they know that down the line, it's going to provide them more opportunities. And so that's a very common thing, by the way, in many other industries. And so it's really also, you, because of those choices, you had to change, and obviously everything worked out for you. You're just fine. But, there are consequences to choices, and you just didn't have the information. And yeah. And so, by the way, I was just thinking, Chuck Penzone, that was my first ever massage I got. I went there because yes, I went there when I was 8 years old, and I had a massage because Tom was working with them. Yeah. And I was like, this is the best day ever. Like, I blame that for now wanting massages all the time. Right.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. Love to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah. He's so great. So, there's other financial literacy curriculum out there, right? I know you've experienced other ones. We won't go into the other names, but what do you like about Money EDU, and how do you think it's different in your experience as an owner than other programs?
What I love about it is the fact that it's real life information, and that you do have relevant people that are telling their story, and it's so easy to see, the end result. And people, I used to say all the time, you're the glory, you see the glory, but you don't know the story. And and so that's what I love about the program, that it does. People are being authentic and honest and real about the transition and the challenges that they've had to go through in order to get where they are. And you don't, like you said, you get to make your choices, but you don't get to choose the consequences. And there are very real and very hard sometimes consequences to the choices that we make. So if you have the information behind it, then it allows you to make such better choices. And that's really what I love about community program, because it just empowers people with the information. Now, what you do with it, that's up to you. You have to decide whether or not you want to use it or not, but no longer will you be able to say, well, I didn't know. Because one thing you guys have done an extremely great job at is touching all the bases. One of the things that when we were testing it out, we had a few roundtables with some future professionals, and we were going through one part talking about interest rate and how, when you get a car, how your interest rate affects, and how it affects how high or how low your interest rates are based on some of the decisions that you make. And there was a young man that was in the program and going through it. He was in the roundtable and literally had just purchased a car. And he was like, oh my God, I wish I'd have known this just a couple of days ago. I would have made such a different decision. Such a different decision. And it was when I realized in that moment, like, this is information that they're using right now. Like, this is not something they have to wait 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road to use it. Like, they're in it. They're in the game right now. And so this information touches home. And I've had so many other future professionals tell me the exact same thing, because when we have our community mini classes few times a week now. And we started off one day a week, and now it's like 2 or 3 times a week. And they love it because it's getting in the information that they're in right now.
NeCole, can you, I'm curious to like, so when you say you're doing mini classes, can you describe what a mini class is like? Because I think
Sure.
one of the things we've learned all week is like people are doing it a little differently, right? But this first time I've heard the concept of mini classes. Do you mind sharing what the mini classes are all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have two people, one person in each location that they are like the creative master of Cunity.
Okay.
And what they do is, we have mini class time, two different times while, that when they're on the clinic classroom floor. And so with there's mini class time, one of the days or a few of the days it's Cunity is the subject, because every day there's a different subject. So when it's Cunity, the subject is Cunity, then anybody that is available, if they don't have a guest or if they don't have class, or if maybe they're tired of working on their worksheet and they want to break and they want to go over and look, there are one day you're assigned to it, but the other 2 days you can go if you want to.
So it might be
And
like reinforcement of content they've already heard, but reinforcing it and reinforcing it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah.
And they're all 3 days, they're not the same.
Right.
Sometimes they're different. So it really is good. And what we're starting to see is the classes are much busier. At first they started out, just the people that were assigned went. But now we're starting to see there's more and more and more people, and they really look forward to it.
Yeah.
So
There's nothing worse than a student that has nothing to do. So you're giving them a whole other option.
oh yeah.
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 That's great.
And
Yeah.
and the dialogue is phenomenal because the creative masters of it, they're like totally into it, as you can see from from the 9th grade contest. I mean, they're so into it, and it makes so much sense because they share their stories, and then the other future professionals start sharing their stories, and they're going back and forth. But well, what do you think about this? So I've actually seen it in action, and the dialogue is just it just makes my heart sing. I love it.
That's brilliant. I never even in all of my years in this industry, I've never thought about like having like a mini class on the side so that you could like
Yes.
students can opt in, because once there's only so many quotas you could do in a quota book, right? So like
Exactly.
go crazy, right? So that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then different people are going through different things at different times. So they're like, okay, when's the next Cunity class? I need to talk about something. So they're looking forward to it.
Love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Is there a module that you've seen, for those of you, again, new to Cunity, I'm trying to see who's new that I can tell, but we've got 8 modules: money in, money mindset, money in, money out, money borrowed, money saved, money taxed, money plan, and money success. Okay. And some people love some modules, people surprisingly really like the tax module, which I always find interesting, but lots of students have their favorite, right? And it changes over time. Is there a module that you've seen students really get jazzed about? And I'm sure it's also around timing of where they're at in their career, like what's most relevant.
It probably is, but I would really be remiss if I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing. I'm sure Allison and Rachel could tell you, and I'm not sure if they're on the call or not, but if they are, guys, pop in and see which one it gets the most, they get most excited about. But for me, I would imagine it would, because Orlando and I, we get an opportunity to do what we call team huddle, and that's when we have the whole school together. And we probably like once a quarter. We used to do it a little bit more often, but now like once a quarter, we'll kind of chime in and have the financial conversation. And we talk a lot about money in.
Yeah.
Everyone loves money in, right?
Yes. No, it really, money in, because Orlando's favorite saying is, it's not what you make, it's what you keep. So we talk a lot about money in and money out. Because at this age it's a little enticing to take all the money that you make and keep up with the Joneses on Instagram. But that's not always the most savvy and the wisest thing to do. And so
I have to tell you, on the podcast, which again, it's just there for students and anyone who wants to go through there. And NeCole's on there, but we just had John Paul DeJoria, and we talked about and he's the founder, for those of you who don't know, he's the founder of John Paul Mitchell Systems. He's the founder of Patron. He's a huge philanthropist. He's worth $3.6 billion, something crazy.
One of my huge mentors.
Yeah. Oh, he's amazing. And he's like as kind as you could be. That's the best part about him. However, I think we can all learn some financial tips from a billionaire. So I asked him on the podcast, and one of the things he said was every time his earnings increased, he would keep his lifestyle the exact same for a minimum of a year. And I think before he would update and increase his standard of living. And I think, if we can see someone who's done that, it's like, I think the natural thing for when students get out into the workforce, and naturally students make, nobody makes a ton of money right out of college unless you're an investment banker. That's the only one I've ever seen make a decent living right after college or right after school. But your income grows, and naturally we have expenses grow. And so I think having students have that lesson about, it's not just exactly what you said. It's not just about what you make, it's about what you keep, and really recognizing that, all of these things and needs and wants and choices, which is also another lesson, is so driven by society, and we get so like capped into it. But have your income grow. Imagine if your expenses didn't grow. I mean, that's freedom. That's freedom.
It is. I mean, it's something as simple as, and I'll share a practice that Orlando and I do. We live off of one income.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, now trust me. I know for some of you, you're like, what? And it took some time for me to get used to. But when I tell you, because life happens, I mean, just keep living. It happens. And you have to be prepared for those rainy days, or you have to be prepared for those opportunities. And one thing that I share with our future professionals is opportunities in life are going to come. They're going to come. The thing is, are you going to be prepared for them when they come up, when they show up? If you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. So that's the key. And having money on hand for those opportunities, whether it's a house, and keeping your credit and all of that in order so that you can take advantage of that opportunity, or whether it's a business opportunity, you just never know. The last thing that I ever imagined was that I would be offered an opportunity to own a Paul Mitchell school. That was the last thing on my radar. Last thing. And to have that opportunity presented to me, but then one step further, be in the position to be able to take advantage of that opportunity and go to the bank and say, hey, I know this is a ridiculous amount of money that I'm asking, but this is why I'm good for it. You got to be ready, because again, those opportunities, it may not always be a Paul Mitchell school or whatever, but I promise you, there will be some opportunity that shows up in your life that you will want to take advantage of. And if you are financially set and prepared for it, the unknown, you'll thank yourself later, because you'll be able to take advantage of them. Yours. I'm sure I stole it from somebody, so it's all yours.
No, NeCole, sometimes in my head, and like you always say, wealth is what you don't see. I know that's NeCole always says that. I'm like, oop, ain't that the truth, right? Rich is loud, wealth is quiet. Also good. So anyways, I know we've got about 6 minutes left. I want to just ask, is there anything specific, and we might have already talked about this, of what you're doing to drive engagement with students with the program? Do you credit those mini sessions and then you and Orlando coming in quarterly? I know that's what you kind of alluded to.
It really is. I mean, the more people see it and the more active, the 9 grit contest, people that what that's doing, it's forcing them to come up with their goals. And we always talk about the importance of goal setting. So all that is just an activity to help, create some fun and some excitement around creating your goals. And I think you guys are brilliant at doing that, because we don't always think of stuff like that, because we're worried about, like making sure that they know how to cut hair and that they know how to make sure the sanitation is where it needs to be and all of those. So the fact that you guys are able to sprinkle in those activities to keep it fun and keep it exciting and keep it relevant
Yeah.
is amazing. That really, really is, that makes things so much nicer. And it, again, it keeps the future professionals engaged. So we don't really have to do a whole lot other than seeing the results of it. And again, because they are seeing the results now, and it's just not something that they're waiting until, you know, oh yeah, one day when I buy my house or when I do this.
Right.
It's real. It's right now. They're living it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh,
NeCole,
thank you for that.
This is once again, these go too fast, and I think
I
we
know.
need to learn that lesson for next time
Yeah.
because they go so fast. But there's folks on the call that that maybe right now in the process of considering adding money by CUNY to their curriculum, and that sometimes it is a struggle to say, hey, how do I fit this into the package that I offer to my students? What advice would you give to someone who's maybe on the fence and saying, is this something I really need to do?
Well, one thing I know, we talk about it quite extensively in our tours, and parents absolutely love it. When we talk about it to the parents, especially the dads, oh, it's like, okay, let's go. This is what you're doing. This is what we're doing. Yeah, they love it. And then when they see that their young person or their person that they're supporting is excited about it, even if they weren't maybe at first, but once they get into it and they see that it's really working, they're utilizing the information, and it's just not something that they have to study and take a test on, but it's real life information, life skills that they're using. That just drives the point home even more. So I think those two things in particular, if it wasn't a deal sealer for us, that was probably one thing that we kind of thought, oh yeah, we'll mention it in our tours. But I mean, there's been cases where like it's been a big part of our tour, where they love the fact that we spend so much time, especially with all the talk in the news about saving money and making sure that these expenses, these school loans and all of that are being managed. We talk a lot about that, and the importance of maybe not taking out money that you don't need,
Mm-hmm.
why that's important and how that's going to affect them later versus right now. So all of those conversations are extremely relevant, not only in our school, but like I said, all you got to do is turn on the news.
That's brilliant. Yeah, because I think it's been a common thread that all week is that this program is a point of difference, is particularly at the beginning of the cycle, that admission cycle, when you're talking to a prospective student and a parent, and if someone's shopping your school, there is this marked point of difference, and I think it's important to highlight that because their success is your success, right? So that's
Right.
the way it rolls out. So well
Let's
done.
not forget our staff. I mean,
Yeah.
our
Right.
team, they're eating up. So, they're really, in fact, it's actually really cute because Orlando has always been, about that life. And so the fact that they can like have real conversations with him about, their finances and what they're some of the decisions that they're making, and it really makes a difference. So it's a huge benefit for our team as well.
Brilliant. Well done. Well done. Well, congratulations on your success. Like I said,
Thank you so much.
you're very famous in our parts. So
Oh, bless
pleasure to
you.
be with you today.
So
Yeah.
nice to be here. Thanks for
Once
having me.
again, we are at time. I'm like, I could talk to you guys for so long. And I think it's so helpful also for people to hear how people are using it, because that's the value of this curriculum, right? We give you all the ways, but ultimately every school is different. Your hours are different. Your programs are different. Your culture is different. Your staff is different. So find ways that really work for you and will help support you, right? It's not like take the program and go, we hold your hands and guide you as much as you need us to. And so, I love that you said it's a part of admissions, because we know that 76% of students, based on our surveys, have had zero financial education. By the way, I can still remember in college at, a traditional 4-year school, my roommate would get her student loan disbursements and all of a sudden there'd be shopping bags ever. She'd be like, I got my loan. And it's like, it's not just, it's any school. It's just students don't know. And so if you can equip those students, it kind of lets support systems who are already being like, ooh, is this the best path? It lets their guard down a little bit because, by the way, they're probably not getting it at most 4-year institutions anyways, if that's a barrier, So.
And just to add to that, it's so interesting that a lot of these kids are taking this information and sharing it with their parents because they don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I know. That's what breaks my heart sometimes when I see the parents and, some educators. I will say some of the challenges we've seen. I remember there was one time I was bringing this to life and there was an educator who was in her late 70s and she was like, it's too late for me. I'm like, oh, it's not too late. You know what I mean? But there is a bit of a time horizon with money and the earlier you get it. So I hear you. I think people are bringing it back to their family, their friends. So it's really interesting.
And just on a final note, this is breaking generational curses, which just it's, oh my God, it's just so cool.
Stop the cycle, right? Stop the cycle.
One of our future professionals told me that. And it just, oh my gosh, it almost brought me to tears. Because she said, I'm going to be able to break generational curses. Oh my
We're going to have to maybe put a pin in that one because that could be a whole call in and of itself.
So I just got goosebumps.
Yeah.
That's the why.
When she told me that, I did too. It was that was just, oh my gosh, we're doing great work here.
Yeah. Well done.
Education changes everything. Thanks, everybody.